Welcome, this is Professor Hemlock here, coming with another video. Today we are going to go over ways to simply improve as an overall mage player. Okay, it's not always about damage done. A lot of the time it's about survival. Shadowlands has really been an expansion of AoE mechanics where everyone's taking a bunch of damage. Single target where you're getting like Sin Seeker on you from the Altmore fight, or you're getting Plaguefall where everyone is getting the big disease debuff, or in the other side where you're in the mech area and they're getting the haymakers. They're putting out a bunch of damage that needs to be line of sighted. So overall, I think Blizzard's really put it on DPS this expansion to avoid mechanics, to not take damage, to use your utility options. And this is a great area where we can improve upon. So instead of focusing on just doing better DPS, I want to talk about survival, how to play better and make your group go more efficiently. If our healers are wasting a bunch of mana on us, they're not going to have as much uptime on the tank. Takes too much damage. We can't do as big of AoE pulls in Mythic Plus, or our healers are wasting mana on raid encounters when they're healing the group. So let's go over our biggest and best options as mage and what to do in different situations. So I think I want to go over first our biggest and probably the one I see the most underused is altar time. I cannot state enough how this is probably one of our best options. This is probably the best option. If you need great mobility, but you need to maintain uptime on target, altar time. Altar time, it's crazy. So, let's go over some thought process and how to utilize this ability a little bit better. So say we are in the other side and we're doing the first big mech pull where they're going to do the big AoE haymaker that we need to line of sight. You can wait all the way up until the last second of that cast. So I'm just here spamming damage all the way up until the very end. I drop my altar time. I can get out at the last second for the line of sight. Altar time right back in. Bam, I'm applying more pressure right off the bat. So this is a great utility option. There are so many encounters where we need the movement, and we want to be back in that same spot. So if we're locked into a static DPS position where the boss may not be moving or the AoE pack may not be moving, altar time is our best option. Shimmer is not as good of an option in this situation, and you should be prioritizing altar time. It's got a pretty low cooldown. So again, going over a little bit more, if we're in a situation where we need to come back to that static position, but we need to get out for an AoE mechanic, we're going to keep our damage up as much as we can, wait till we need to get out, we can hit our altar time, dip around the corner, and then rotate back in with altar time instantaneously. Very good movement option, maintains better uptime, and prevents us from taking that additional damage to make everything easier on our healers and tanks. Now, say it's a little bit different, where it's a fight like in Plaguefall, the very first boss, Mr. Globotron over there. He does that big frontal cone AoE, right? So most often, our tanks are going to take him in the corner here, but say we miss a little bit, the tank makes a little mistake, and he's not facing the boss away, so he's going to do the slime AoE right in front of us, and we're in a bad position. But tanks often are kiting the slime because of those ads that spawn. So since our tank is moving a lot, altar time is actually going to be a less valuable option in this position, because we're not going to want to be back here. If the tank is rotating this direction, and we need to rotate out of the AoE cone that's also going this direction, Shimmer is now going to become our best option. So we can stay in there and deal damage till the last second, make sure you are in a close enough distance to get away with Shimmer, Shimmer out, and now our tank that's kiting this direction will still be in a good position to keep DPS up on the boss. So now we've avoided taking damage from the mechanic, we've put ourselves in a better position to continue doing more DPS, and then we're taking pressure off our healers from not taking unnecessary damage, or in the case of the Plaguefall boss, on higher keys you will get one-shot by that ability. So you got to get out of it. So you're doing a lot. You're staying alive, you're preventing the healer from having to do extra work, and you're keeping better uptime on the boss. Better uptime on the boss, more damage, boss dies quicker, tank takes less damage, we end up winning quicker, right? So it's all kind of a good cyclic pattern. Now, our other two options are not mobility-driven options. They're defensive utility options. So these are just as important because there is a lot of unavoidable damage at the current state of the game as well. You know, I think of in the raid encounter, the second boss and the first boss both have single target unavoidable damage mechanics. If you're on Shriekwing, Shriekwing targets the players with a debuff that after 5 seconds it'll expire, and a gargoyle jumps down, bam, smashes on you, drops a blood pool on you. That is a soak option that we need to avoid that damage. The less damage we take, the more healers can spend time healing other people or tanks specifically, and the more time we can save. So how to best avoid and what situation is best for each option. So prismatic barrier and mirror image. So these are pretty different utility options for defenses here, and some of them are better in different situations. So let's look at the first bosses in the raid here, the first and second boss, Shriekwing and Huntsman. Shriekwing's attack that will drop an AoE on you when you attack, when you get the debuff on you, that AoE is probably going to be best to absorb with Prismatic Barrier if that's the only time that you're going to be taking additional damage. Use that global and take that barrier on. Don't just stand there and take the damage unnecessarily. Obviously, we love dealing damage, and dealing damage is the best thing, but you're not going to down raid bosses by simply doing damage. A lot of the new mechanics involve people not dying. You don't die, you're gonna make the timer because you're gonna have enough time to keep dealing more damage. If you deal 6k DPS for 10 seconds and die to a mechanic, you're not gonna be doing as good as someone who did 1k DPS over the course of the whole fight. Stay alive, don't die, and then we'll get more raid bosses downed. Or Mythic Plus's keys are gonna be timed, right? So say I need to take that damage, I'm always going to use Prismatic Barrier every single time, 100% of the time. It's a 25-second cooldown. It's really low. Even though I could keep spamming my Arcane Blast or whatever portion of my damage rotation I'm in, I could just keep spamming if I wanted to, and I could just soak that mechanic, no barrier up, take all the damage. If I use that barrier, that's going to save my raid a lot of work, or my Mythic Plus group a lot of time. Instead of drinking, we're going to be able to have our healer be dealing more damage. Now, say this is a major mechanic. I'm thinking of, on a Huntsman fight, the Sinseeker arrows. Okay? So you're taking a major mechanic where you can't move, you're going to take it, the damage is unavoidable. Of course, I'm still going to barrier. I want to keep my barrier up, but especially on heroic and mythic difficulties, these things truck. So you need to avoid that damage entirely. Or, obviously, we don't want to use Ice Block in all situations here. Mirror images. So this is just insanely good against Sinseeker arrows. The Sinseeker arrow is a direct attack. Okay? So when you drop your mirror images, if you note that little bottom end of that little tooltip there, a mirror taking direct damage will cause one of your images to dissipate. This is great! They can absorb the damage! So now, in addition to taking 20% less damage, we can fully avoid direct targeted mechanics. This is an irreplaceable defensive. The flat damage reduction is insanely good, especially when paired with a barrier. So if I'm in Plaguefall on the final boss and we're getting the 4 stack of the disease debuff, that will kill you on higher keys without direct defensive from you. Your healer can probably pump through it if your healer's a fucking monster. But we don't want our healer to have to put that kind of stress out, because they're going to have to use cooldowns to put out that kind of healing HPS. So let's save our healers the mana, let's save them the cooldowns, let's keep ourselves alive. Our best option, Prismatic Barrier, Mirror Image. We're not only absorbing 8,000 damage, but we're taking 20% less damage on top of that. And it's on a 2-minute cooldown. Especially in that final boss of the Plaguefall fight, it's going to last more than 2 minutes. You can go into that fight with your mirror images up, and you can get 2 uses out of them. That's insane damage prevention. Use those global cooldowns, get the defensives up, prevent your healer from wasting healing, save your life, do more damage in the long run. Again, 2.5k DPS over the course of a whole fight is going to be 6k when you die on the first big AoE, right? Okay. So those are our primary mage defensives that we should be using more often. Now, obviously, we have Ice Block here. So what is going to be our best use of Ice Block? We don't want to just use Ice Block on every single time that we have. If every time during Plaguefall, if that final boss does the big AoE where everyone gets the 4 stack of the debuff, if I used mirror images and just barrier every time, that might not be enough. If I have Ice Block off cooldown, I can fully prevent some of that damage and make it even easier on our healer. So instead of just reducing the damage, I now have a great opportunity for Ice Block. But generally, a healer should be able to heal you through if you're using these defensives correctly on almost any situation. So the best case use for Ice Block is going to be on something where you fucked up and you need to survive. So say you're on the Artificer fight in Castle Nathria, where at the final phase, he does that big draw that's really quick and it's easy to fuck up. I personally have made a mistake where I mistimed a shimmer and I went into the portal too soon or too late and I got sucked in too far, right? So I knew I was going to die there. I made a mistake personally, and there's no one that can save me in the entire raid except myself. That is the situation where Ice Block is going to be your best use. Unavoidable death. Ice Block is going to get its most value. Say you're in a situation that you've made a mistake, or your raid has made a mistake, or you get aggro and some enemy is running towards you and going to one-shot you. That's where you use Ice Block. That's your biggest, greatest defensive on the longest cooldown. But it's a last resort. If I have other options, I'm using my other options first. I'm getting out. I'm shimmering away. I'm alter timing out of position. I'm barriering to prevent damage, and I'm using mirror images to make myself not take that damage if it's a direct target, or reducing overall AoE damage. Use Ice Block in I'm going to die situations. And that covers our direct mage abilities. We do have 3 options that can do additionally benefit, and a 4th option that's kind of not as good, but is there. And those are our Covenant abilities. So let's go over my 2 personal favorite Covenants, that is Venthyr and Night Fae. I play both of them. I do like to rotate back and forth. Venthyr, Soul Shape is insane mobility. It's insane. It feels crazy. So it does have a duration time when you cast it. It lasts 12 seconds long, so you can actually get multiple casts out of this blink. So if I need to blink and I need to keep moving on a fight where my damage doesn't matter. Now, if you do a damage or defensive use any mage ability, it will pull you out of Soul Shape. So make sure that you're in a good enough position where you do not need any more mobility when you're done with your Soul Shape. And then I can use my ability, and I'm pulled back out of Soul Shape, and I can keep going back to my damage rotation or whatever I need to do in specific mechanical situations. But Soul Shape is the best mobility Covenant, hands down. Can't beat it. Door of Shadows is really good too, though, and it has a lot of utility options, which is why I like Venthyr. Door of Shadows can come with a Disorient or a Root and Snare Break, which are probably my 2 favorite uses of Door of Shadows. So say you have got stuck in a slow mechanic or an AoE mechanic that is rooting or snaring you, or your tank has pulled too many enemies, or it's necrotic week, like right now, where I need to help my tank not die or prevent myself from dying. Door of Shadows, I can Door of Shadows into a pack of enemies. Boom. AoE Disorient. Now my tank is taking less damage. My tank can kite away, drop those necrotic stacks. Insane utility offering. That's going to make you not wipe on that big double pack pull that was maybe an accident where you don't have DPS cooldowns or your tank needs to kite. Door of Shadows can also get you out of situations. If you're snared in a trap, there's quite a few mobs in Mythic Plus that do drop traps, and if you step into one, you can Door of Shadows out, break that snare and trap if you're respecting the Theatar, and ta-da, I'm out, I'm free, I'm good to go. So those are our two mobility option covenants. The other two, Necro Lord and Curian, are utility defensive options. Curian specifically is probably the better of the two, predominantly because the Covenant ability is actually good. Radiant Spark's good. But the absorb healing, the healing from it's basically a health stone, and the utility of it removing bleeds magic effects, or bleeds and diseases and poisons, and only thing it doesn't remove is magic effects. In Plaguefall, that AoE we were talking about earlier, that Curian potion, you're healed, your diseases are cleansed, you're good to go. Now make sure that boss will keep stacking up to 4, wait till you hit 4 stacks, then cleanse. But that's a great utility defensive option that we have available to us in our Curian Covenant. And the final option is Necro Lord. You should just always go into a fight with Fleshcraft if you are Necro Lord and you like playing the meme build. Just go into the fight with Fleshcraft up and use it if you're getting into a situation where you're absolutely dying. The 4-second cast time and that it's a cast that you can't really move during is really punishing, and it's probably the weakest of the 4 Covenant abilities that we have access to, which is kind of sad because Necrolord's pretty sick looking, but, you know, whatever, it's what it is. Hopefully Blizzard gives us a little buff to the Necrolord to make it a little more playable, or just a change. But make sure you're in a safe spot. You're not going to take any mechanics, and then you can get your Fleshcraft re-upped if you need to in the middle of a longer fight. And that is the breakdown of simple ways to improve our gameplay and maybe not do more damage, but live longer to do more total damage. And that's going to make our raid easier. It's going to make our Mythic Plus key times actually timed. And you know, make our gameplay more experienced, more fun. People think you're really skilled when you block a mechanic really cool or take less damage. Anyways, this is Brofessor here signing off. Y'all have a great day, and we will catch you next time.